one time we were at a party. We had gotten home from a weekend of softball, and so we finally could go out, and we went to a party, and she wasn't drinking, and she was kind of fun and always drinking. When we were at a party, she would have a drink or two, and she wasn't drinking. And so I noticed that, and I asked her what was going on, and she said that she had a test in the morning, and she had a difficult major, and we knew that if she had a test in the morning, that means she needed to be focused. So didn't question it too much. Weren't sure if there was maybe a fight going on with her partner. We didn't really know much, but we were having fun and we were at a party. So we kind of were hanging out, and then next thing we know, she left the party, and we talked to her partner who was still there, and she said that our teammate had already left and she's going to leave too. So they left, and then a couple of my friends and I were going to leave the party also because we didn't get to celebrate someone's 21st birthday. And she was turned 21 when we were on the road, and with the 48-hour rule, and you're not allowed to drink within a certain time when you're traveling, and even in college, if you're of age, you're just not allowed to. And for us, we were like, well, we want to celebrate. We don't want it to be like overshadowed by just that it was on a game day. So we left. There was just 3 of us, and we left the party so that we could just go somewhere and have drinks to celebrate. And we're just walking around, and we were definitely drinking, and I get a call on my phone from our teammate's partner, and she didn't call me very much. And so I was like, what the heck, this is weird. And we had just seen her, so I answered it, and she was freaking out, like freaking out. And she said, I don't know what happened. She might be dead. Get here as fast as you can. And that's pretty much all we heard. And I hang up the phone, and I have to try to relay that when I'm drinking to my 2 friends who are also drinking, and we have to try and make it serious, because who knows if it's serious. We have no idea what's going on. And I just yelled at them, and I was like, guys, this is serious. We have to get there right now. And honestly, I'm thinking about distance. It was probably about a mile away, and the 3 of us drinking had to run a mile, which is already not easy for us. And so we ran and ran as fast as we could, and we got to her apartment, and we ran upstairs, and of course it's like 4 flights of stairs, and we run up there, and her partner's right there waiting for us, bawling, and like leads us into the bathroom. So we run into the bathroom, and we see her on the floor, our teammate. She's on the floor. We have no idea what's going on. And her partner's just screaming all the information to us. She's explaining to us, whether, like, what happened and what she knows. And our teammate is conscious, but not in the way that we are. Like, she had a suicide note on the ground in the bathroom, and then she had an empty bottle of pills. And in the suicide note, it said bye to us, it said bye to our coaches, and I knew I'd cry, but this is the part I didn't know when, but it said goodbye to us. Like, it was serious. And when people talk about this, you have no idea what serious means, and this was serious. The farther down the road in terms of like my professional and education and everything, in my professional career and my education, I learned that something like that means she wanted to die. Like, she had a plan. And my mom, we'll talk about that later too, but you write a note, you take something intentionally to harm yourself, like that. She wanted to die. And I had seen her about an hour before that. All of us had. And yeah, she was a little off, but we had no idea. So we did what we could. Luckily, all 3 of us are medical. We were all in healthcare majors. And one of them had an app that you could search a medication and look at all the information on it. And thank God for that, because the app said that the thing that she took it couldn't kill her. Thank God. It was antidepressants. And so the fact that those can't kill her is very good. And also the fact that our friend thought of that is amazing. And then one of our other friends, her role was to keep her awake and to make sure that she was okay, make sure that she was alive. And so she helped her make sure she didn't choke, didn't anything, put her on her side. And my job was to make sure that the cops were called, to make sure that the partner was okay, and make sure that we could call someone that could help us. So we called who we could, and some people answered, some people didn't. We called a couple coaches, and they said they'd come get us, and we said we'd just meet them at the hospital. And the cops came, and the cops were actually pretty fast. If I remember it, they were like time-wise, they were really fast, but in terms of our like response, they were really like, it felt like hours. It felt like 3 hours probably between the time this happened and the time that the cops got there. And so what we did is basically the cops got there and they said, we can't go with them, but we can meet them at the hospital. So we get to the hospital, she's fine. The coaches all showed up, which was really cool. It's like 2 or 3 in the morning at this point, and everyone showed up for us, which was great. We all waited in the ER with each other and just cried and talked about what happened. And then that morning, our AD showed up. And at Ohio State, that is a big deal for an AD to show up in the middle of the night like that for someone. So I thought that was really cool, and I've always respected him a lot more for that. But basically, they told us there's nothing we can do at this point, and we need to just go home. So we went home. Of course, none of us slept. That next morning, they told us we didn't have to go to class. And so we didn't go to class, and our coaches said they'd take us to breakfast, and then we had a meeting with a sports psychologist. So that next morning, the 3 of us went to breakfast and to the sports psychologist at different times. 2 of us went together and 1 went alone. And we just tried to process it, but it was too soon. I think all of us had still felt just so amped by it, and so just like stressed about it. And so we talked to them, did what we could. He basically said, the sports psychologist said, like, they're like, you did the right thing, and like just all these things that I don't even remember. I don't know if my friends would remember either, but don't even remember that part. But then what I do remember is we canceled practice, and then we ended up having a team meeting. And I was friends with all my teammates, of course, and I have a lot of different groups of friends. And the group that I was with during this whole thing, and my roommates and some of my other friends, they had no idea. And we didn't want to say anything because we didn't know what was going to go on, and we didn't know what our teammate would think, but we had to just kind of stay quiet. So the 3 of us sat together at a meeting and just cried, and they didn't tell us a lot. They didn't say really what happened. They did say like what they were allowed to say, of course, and the sports psychologist was there for that. And that was the hardest part for me, I think, at least for a while, was not being able to talk about it to anyone, especially a lot of my support group. And so we leaned on each other. Me and my 2 friends, we leaned on each other for a long time after that. And not being able to tell my roommate, who was one of my best friends, was really hard. And you just had to pretend like you're ready for a Big Ten tournament that weekend, or Big Ten games that weekend, when that's all you can think about. And the fact that your friend is alive is really all that matters. But it was really crazy for us, and like it was a lot. And one of my friends has been diagnosed with PTSD because of this, and I know a lot of us have we just never get over it, and we have bad dreams, and we stress about it sometimes. And I can't even imagine what it's like for my friend, that it actually happened to. And so it ended up that our teammate, she didn't end up keep playing. There's a lot of personal stuff that went on there, but she decided not to keep playing. And she's alive now still, which is wonderful. That weekend we had to play at Maryland. And I remember I played one of the worst weekends of my life against a really bad team. And there's just, of course, that was why, and you think back about it and it's like, gosh, how could anything be more important than your friend's life? And or just softball didn't seem that important at the time. But anyways, we got through it, of course. And looking back, when I've talked to my friend about what happened, she had seen the sports psychologist a couple weeks before, and she wanted me to share this. And she said that she told the sports psychologist that she had visions of killing herself. And she asked if that's dangerous, or if that means that she's probably not okay. And she was told that she's fine. And that is an example of someone who is qualified that didn't respond the right way. And I know we talked about that last week, and what do you do when you're talking to someone who's not qualified versus qualified? But like, at the same time, some people are qualified and they still can't give you the right advice. They still don't point you in the right direction. And she wasn't safe. And she said to her that she wants to kill herself, to our sports psychologist. And this is the same sports psychologist that I saw that told me that I was fine and that my injury didn't matter. And, she didn't respond well. And a lot of our teammates have seen her, and a lot of people have been helped. But at the same time, a lot of people haven't been, because you need more than just that one resource. And so anyways, going through all of that, I don't really know what else to say, other than I guess I'm glad that 3 of us had medical backgrounds. I'm glad that I knew who to call. I'm glad that they knew what to check on, what to do. And I don't know if she would have died or not. I don't know if taking those pills could have killed her based off of what we researched. And I don't know if in the grand scheme of things, if we weren't there, if anything would have been changed. But I do know that being there in the moment, it felt like we were helping, but it also affected all of us, and it will probably for our whole lives. So anyways, thank you for letting me share the story. It is really hard, and I know that it's really hard for her. She didn't want to join today. And I can't imagine what else everyone else is going through, and that's someone who we knew there were problems. People knew there were problems, and that still happened. So imagine the people that have no idea. So I'll let Mom transition now, and we'll get moving on to the educational part.
Okay, thanks, Morgan. I know that was hard, and you did a great job. It's really hard when you're telling your own story and your own experience of being basically an interventionist, which is what you were. So I'm going to talk a little bit about the approach and the things that the girls did appropriately and the roles that they played. And basically this is to help all of you who are not mental health professionals, to help you figure out what you can do to help. So first and foremost, one of the things that went incredibly well that night is that the partner knew who to call. So they could have called anyone, and they chose to call Morgan. And I think that makes a difference, because regardless of what state you're in, or if you're out at a party or whatever, when you need help, you need to know who you can count on. And so I don't think Morgan would say that, necessarily recognize that that was one of the best moves made, but that was definitely it. And then the fact that they just went straight there. And I remember, and she didn't mention this and may not remember this because it was such a high stress event, but she called me right away, and she's like, Mom, what do I do? And went through the checklist of, did someone call the police? Did someone call a coach? Are you on your way there? Do I need to call the police? All those kinds of things. And she was able to answer those questions and calm down and make it happen. If you knew the 3 girls that responded, they were the right ones, like I said, because they could handle it in they could kind of separate themselves and handle it in a strategic way. That's like, we need to not freak out, not scream and holler, and not make this about us. We need to make this about our friend, and then we can fall apart later, which they all did in their own way, which is also very healthy. So again, I kind of knew what was going on as it was going on, and kind of tried to guide and coach them as much as I could. So as Morgan mentioned, there are basically 2 types of suicide interventionists, and I'm using that term loosely, but simply to mean somebody who responds when there is a suicide threat or a actual suicide attempt. So there's the professionals, and she spoke about that a little bit, and that is the sports psychologist, the therapist, the first responders, the professionals who get the training on what to do. And most of the time, that's not who is present, right? You're usually with your friends, with your partner, with your parents, with your team, whatever the case may be. And so in this case, there wasn't a professional around other than 911, who obviously they did respond. And then on the flip side, then there's all the rest of us. And I know that a lot of you asked last month, like, what's my role and what do I do? And so we thought that would be a really good approach today to kind of talk through what the untrained professional does. And I actually want to recommend a training to all of you, because with the number of suicides and suicide ideation that's happening across the country, across the world, you are going to be in a position to intervene. No matter what, if you could work at a grocery store and it could happen, you could be a food delivery person and need to do something. You could be driving over a bridge, which I'll talk about that scenario when I talk a little bit about this program I'm recommending. But you could be the one driving across the bridge and seeing somebody on the side of the bridge ready to jump. And you actually can make a difference. And so that's what I'm going to talk a little bit about today. And I also want to talk a little bit about the roles that the girls played in this intervention as well, to kind of make it make a little more sense. One of the other things I want to talk about quickly, so I don't forget, is we went to that Maryland game after this incident happened. And one of the things I did for the girls that anybody could do, but it was important to me to do for the girls, is to really recognize the traumatic experience they went through as people doing an intervention and responding to this crisis. And so I have these little angel tokens. They're just, I'm sure you've heard of these things, and there were just these little silver coins. And I stamped the date on the back of each one to help the girls recognize that's the day they saved a life. Morgan mentioned one of the girls is struggling with some PTSD, and of course that's going to happen. They have a bond from that night that not one of us will ever quite understand. And so it was really important for me as a professional to say, you guys, that was a really big deal. Thank you for what you did, but also recognize what a serious situation this was and how it's going to impact you for the rest of your lives. And so Morgan is actually using this platform as a way to make a difference beyond herself. And I think that's really important. So what I'm going to talk about is called ASSIST, and it stands for Applied Suicide Intervention Skills Training. And I'm certified in this. I went to it a couple of years ago. It's actually not for professionals, but as a licensed clinical social worker, we actually have to do CEUs with 2 hours of suicide prevention or assistance training. And this was actually a 2-day training, but it was awesome. And what I loved about it, and love about it still, is anybody can do it. So you don't have to work at a hospital or work in a police force or be a therapist. So we will put this link on Morgan's page. So if you want to follow up, but like Coach Kelly, or Megan, probably, I immediately think like Ohio State staff and coaches need to get trained on this. So does everybody, but particularly it's a very easy one to bring in or go to. It's a national training. And I'm going to try to share my screen. You know how we talked about this last time. So let me see if I can do this, just to give you the kind of acronym. So this is what it's called. So basically what I like about it is it's suicide first aid. And so most of you, I'm sure, are trained as CPR and first aid responders. I hope you are. And this is a very similar thing. It's a fairly simple training with a lot of role playing where you learn how to do an intervention, and you get a little sticker like this. And then I'm going to talk a bit about the process. And when I talk about the process, I'm not training you in it, but I'm definitely letting you know how the process works. It's something you could do right away if you wanted to, and then certainly get trained in this. So as I mentioned, it's called Assist, and I don't know how big it's showing on your screen. And like I said, we will put this on the page as well, but I want to kind of talk through the process and how it works. So
you can press full screen mode too, but I don't know if you can do that on your own.
Well, I know how to do full screen, but that doesn't mean I know how to do it like this. Okay, well, anyway, let's just roll with it. Okay, guys, we'll get better and better as we go. I need that top bar thing to go away. Morgan, can you just move here and we'll just do this together? Okay.
I can go to your other view. That was better before. Yeah, there we go.
Anyway, I'm just going to leave it at this, and we'll get better and better as we go. So anyway, I'm going to talk a little bit about how the girls did their intervention, and then I'm going to talk about the process and basically letting you know that any one of you can step in and do this. So as you can see through the continuum of safety skills and the depth of skill development, you can kind of see this grid, how it goes like that. And so basically we all have a different level of skill and ability, but every one of us can step in. Just like with CPR, everybody can step in and do chest compressions. And if that's the only thing you do, you are helping someone, right? So it's the same thing here. And so we start out with awareness, being able to become aware that there is a problem. So as Morgan mentioned, that evening, the girls noticed that their friend was off, right? She wasn't drinking, they left early, things like that. So right there, that's awareness, right? Something was different. Could they have done something at that point? Possibly. They definitely asked, is everything okay? And we're assured that everything was okay. So awareness is the first step, right? You just notice. So as I talked about, it's like you're driving across the bridge. You see someone standing on the bridge that looks like they might be thinking about suicide. That's awareness. You have a choice right then to move on, to drive away, to call 911, or to stop and do an intervention. And with this model of Assist, you're actually going to do an intervention. And so the beginning is just being aware of suicide risk, then the identification. I see somebody who is at risk, and I'm going to stay with the bridge scenario. So you're driving across the bridge, you see somebody, everybody kind of sees it and goes, ew, that's uncomfortable and scary. I don't know what to do, so I'm just going to go. And that's an option for sure. But then the other option is say, I'm going to do something about it. And in this case, this step was kind of missed in the story Morgan told because there was a partner, and there was a partner who made the call to them to let them know. So that was the identification step there. And that's basically called the safety starter. You are choosing to recognize that there's a potential problem and to do something about it. So then we move to the next step, which is the safety connector is the role. And this is where engagement happens. This is where you make the choice to stop and do something about it. If it's call 911, that's fine. It's always the option to call 911, but the response time, for instance, on a bridge or in the situation Morgan was talking about, is there enough time for that to happen? Besides the fact that the partner needed help too. So this is the place where you go, I'm going to do something about it. And so engagement means you take action and choose to participate. And then we move forward on intervention. And this is the intervention place where you would think that's the police technically. And in some cases it is, but where we start is the understanding. And this means where you get engaged and you say, something's happening here. How can I get this person talking to me so that we're at least communicating right now and the jump isn't happening or whatever the suicide attempt is. So at this stage, it's, you know, hi, my name is Gypsy. I was driving by and I noticed you here. Is everything okay? You know, just things like that, just to start a conversation. You're postponing a suicide, just having a conversation like that. So, and then the next piece is that you really want to start talking about things you might have in common, right? So, you know, where do you work? Where do you live? Do you have any children? Anything like that that gets a conversation going. And as you're communicating with this person, you're building a relationship. Even if it's just a relationship for 15 minutes, you're making them feel heard and you're connecting with them. And so this is kind of, it's called understanding on here, but it's really saying, you know, first you're connecting and figuring out if you have anything in common or anything to talk about, which you definitely would. And then helping the person understand that you get it. You get that they're in pain. If they say to you, it's not worth it, I'm just going to jump. What's not worth it? Wow, that must be really hard. And, you know, not encouraging, obviously, but just that level of empathy where you're able to express yourself in how difficult it must be for them. You don't have to understand. You don't have to understand their situation, but you can absolutely empathize with them. So that's what happens there. So then you would, as you're getting to know them and building this little bit of relationship, and the cars are all stopping, and somebody is definitely calling 911 probably. You say, would you step off of that railing and just sit with me on the curb here, and let's talk for a minute. And it's a pretty bold thing to do and a very big step to take as a human being, to decide to intervene on somebody's suicide attempt, or you know, we don't know how far they were going. But if you can get them off the ledge to sit with you on the curb, you've already made a difference. And so you sit on the curb and you start talking about life, and hopefully what you're able to do here is really talk about the future. So children are always a really good place to go, or career, or a vacation, something like that, where you might say, so you said you work, you know, downtown, for instance, where do you work? And, you know, finding ways, so do you work tomorrow? Finding ways to get them to think about what's next, right? This, in the moment when someone is feeling suicidal, it's very much in the moment, right? They can't think of one other possible reason to stay alive. The pain is so bad that that's the only option. But with this intervention, you could actually provide them with some hope, even if it's just a tiny bit of hope, something that they're looking forward to. They might talk about their child's graduation, or they might talk about a promotion at work, or whatever it is. And then you really grab that and say, wow, well, your kids would really miss having you there at graduation. And, you know, just kind of having that conversation. Again, it doesn't take being a therapist to do that. It's just this human connection and relationship to get them talking. If you've got them talking, now you've got them off the ledge and on the curb, and they're sitting there engaging with you. Now, in the situation that Morgan talked about, their medical intervention was the only option, right? It wasn't, how are you feeling and what do you need, and what are you looking forward to tomorrow? It was medical intervention to get this person safe and then go on. So what we're talking about with this system is more an intervention before a suicide attempt happens, just to make that clear. So the next step is called creating safety. And what's critical about this piece is it is so simple when I explain it. It sounds complicated. And when you do the training, you actually do role playing, which is super hard to do, I know, where you're standing up in the front of the class and somebody is portraying the person on the bridge, and you're the interventionist, and you literally go up and practice saying all these things. And boy, is that hard to do. But once you've done it several times, it's much, much easier. And so at this point, person sitting on the curb next to you, you're talking about things you have in common, or something you can connect about. You're providing some hope for the future. And then the next step is simply, how can I help keep you safe for now? And what's so great about this process is you're just asking them, how can I keep you safe for now? It's not, how can I save your life? It's not, how can I change your life? It's how can I not, help you not be depressed, or whatever the situation is, because that's not your job. You're not a professional in that role. You are literally saying, how can I keep you safe for now? So sometimes the answer will be, well, we could call my dad and he'll come and get me. And, then your job is done. You literally sit with them while they call dad. Dad comes and you pass this person on, because again, that's your only job, is that intervention level. Sometimes they'll say, well, I guess if I hadn't drank today, I probably wouldn't feel this way. And it's like, okay, well, where do you live and what's the alcohol situation at home? Who could we call to get the alcohol out of your house? And sometimes it's, I can't be safe. I feel like if you leave, I'm gonna jump. And then it's 911, no question. You say, well, why don't you sit with me while I call the police? We need to get you to the hospital. So obviously I can't describe all the different scenarios that might happen, but those are some examples. There is no wrong approach. What you would do naturally as a human being is typically the right answer anyway. So in this case, we're saying, how can I help keep you safe for now? And the person lets you know. And then whatever that next step is, if it's calling dad, if it's calling 911, or if it's calling somebody at home to remove the alcohol, that's what you do. And then you will review. The next one is planning. You're going to review, like, how can you get help? Because this isn't a long-term solution. This is just the solution for now. And so they might say, I have a therapist. They might say, I have a teacher or a coach. They might say, I work at a hospital, whatever, that we want to get them connected to the professional they need. Because if somebody is feeling that level of either suicidal ideation or actually attempting, they need professional intervention. That isn't an option. Like, that needs to happen. And so you can give them the suicide hotline. You can tell them, who to call. You're not going to know everything, but you might be able to say, well, do you have somebody in the HR department, or do you have somebody at school, or do you have somebody, that you could talk to? And so once they identify that person, if you haven't handed them off to the police or a parent or whatever, that's when you would typically have them make a call to that person while they're still with you. So obviously you're not going to drive away until they're in someone's care. So one of those people have picked them up, or is on their way. And then it's like, so do you have a therapist? Maybe you could call them right now and make an appointment, for today or for tomorrow, because you're really looking at kind of that immediate 24-hour window to get them on their way. So that's kind of the planning approach. It's, how can I keep you safe for now? And then what do we need to do to start that process? And then you do the handoff. And that's to whoever is responsible to help this person stay safe. And then they move on in their life towards, stability and recovery and hopefully the type of help they need. So it's a little bit different than being a friend or being a parent, or being, the relationship that Morgan and her friends had, but it still allows you the opportunity to intervene at any level with any person. And I think we mentioned this last month, but one of the other really important things is that it used to be, we don't say the word suicide. We don't want to talk about it because it might encourage somebody to actually move forward with that. And the studies actually show, and research shows, that most of the time people do want to be asked and they do want to be heard. And so I say this to Morgan all the time, is whenever you're wondering, then you ask whoever it is, are you safe, or are you feeling like harming yourself? Never, ever hesitate to ask those questions. I would much rather have somebody go, no, you idiot, I'm fine, than not ask and then have something terrible happen. So I'm gonna stop there, other than to, like I said, this will be on the website or on the Facebook page, but livingworks.net is how you get in touch with this assist program and get trained in it. They have in-person and online trainings, of course. And I would just encourage any of you who are head of a department or head of a business, it's worth the money. because this could save a coworker, a friend, a parent, a stranger, a neighbor. And I would say in my practice, I probably ask the question, are you going to harm yourself, or can you keep yourself safe? I probably say it once a day. So it's a pretty common thing for me, but it's not so common for people who aren't in this profession. So I'm going to stop there. We will share these. Like I said, we always have the suicide hotline on there, and then I'll move on to any questions.
Mom, can you explain how when you, with the stranger in that situation, how when you call them or you call their person, their support person, how it kind of passes off that responsibility feeling?
Yes.
Yes.
Yeah, for sure. So obviously there's one option, which is to drive on by, right? Like I mentioned, and if you drive on by, you knew and you didn't act, right? If you just call 911, you knew and you did act at a point, but there's a risk that something could still happen. And then when you choose to do this level of intervention, then you have engaged, you've asked them how to keep them safe, and then you're, bringing in whatever the resource is from there. And what that allows you to do is put your head on your pillow at night and say, I did everything I could. If you aren't a professional therapist or a first responder, it isn't your job to actually do the saving. And so I believe, and after going through this training too, it's just this, it takes all the question out of it, right? Should I intervene? Yes, you should. Do I need to save them? No, I don't, right? I'm going to connect them with the resources they need. And just knowing that, kind of like when you put, if you do CPR or first aid with somebody, first responders arrive, the person goes in the ambulance and they're gone. That's the end of your role at that point. And that's very much how this is. The second piece of that is once you do it in any way, you will share this with others and tell them how effective it can be. And that's kind of a relief. So I think that's probably my best answer, Mo.
Perfect. Yeah, one thing that I thought was interesting when Mom was teaching me about that was how, for me, when I get involved, I do feel a little bit more responsibility. And not that that's a bad thing. I just know that everyone always says it's not your fault, it's nothing you can do. And when you're in that situation, you think otherwise because you know that you can do something. You know that certain things help and certain things might not. And you know that maybe not communicating or not checking in on that person will maybe affect them. And so one thing I liked about this situation with the stranger is when you do call a resource, whether that's the dad or the friend or the sister or whatever, when Mom was explaining it to me on the bridge situation, she said that you call the dad and you have the stranger, the person that was about to jump, explain the whole scenario to the dad while they're on the phone or to the resource, so that now you're not the only person in the world that knows. Mm-hmm. Because being the only person in the world that knows sucks. And it's hard. And that is such an important part for this, I think, because now you and the dad or you and the sister, or you and the friend know. And so now you both have the potential to help, right? And so if you're the stranger, obviously you are passing on that role to the person that they go home to or the person that they go see. But I think that is such an important part to it, because getting more people involved is always better. Because our friend would have been better if more people were involved. She would have, because the sports psychologist is her resource, and the sports psychologist didn't tell her that she wasn't safe. Didn't do anything about her not being safe that day. They didn't ask her, can you keep yourself safe? And then if that's the only person you told, then now no one did anything about it. And so I just thought that was the best part about that last part of the bridge scenario. So right. That's all.
Can I add one other thing?
Yeah, that's all I had.
Okay. Also, one thing I really like about this made me think of it too, Morgan, is what a very simple in steps training can do is it helps you be confident also in what the process is, instead of should I, shouldn't I, what's my job, but the kind of like first aid and CPR, when you do it, you are trained and you are expected to intervene when there is a crisis. And this is very much the same thing, where it's like, you have the tools, you're not going to cause more harm. So if you follow the process, even if you mess it up a little bit, you're better off than just winging it or doing nothing and driving over the bridge. So should we open it up for questions?
Yeah, I think that's all that we have to say. If you guys had any questions for me or Mom, this would be an awesome time.
Does anybody want to ask about that process and what it takes to get that training? We'll have the link on the site so you can look it up yourself too.
Well, yeah, does it have to be an in-person thing, or can you get it online, or
They offer both.
both? Okay.
Yeah, when I did it in person, it was really great because it's emotional, right? And so it's kind of like taking an online class versus, you know, taking an in-person class. You're not going to get in a lot of heated discussions
Right.
in an online class. However, if anybody does it, just doing it is worth it, right? Just knowing the steps and that kind of thing. So I'm a in-person learner anyway. I'm kind of that kind of learner. So for me, I love that, but any way you can get it is worth it.
Well, it is a national, this ASSIST is a national program, so it should be almost anywhere. So
Yes.
probably easy. Okay.
And a lot of universities will host it. I actually took my course at the University of Montana.
Okay. It's worth knowing because it sure is happening a lot.
For sure. Thank you.
And while we wait for another question, I actually, at my job, I work at a midwifery clinic, which there's just 4 providers, and they're nurse midwives, which they deliver babies, and then they're also nurse practitioners. A couple of them are. And one of my nurse practitioners in my office was telling me a story the other day, and it was basically ASSIST. She's trained in, you know, all the scales, all the suicide scales as a provider. And she went on a run in her lunch break, which is amazing anyway. And she was on a run in the park, and she noticed this man standing on the edge of this like hill cliff thing. And in the park that she was at, she always runs there. And the path that she was about to take, she had this feeling like, hey, I don't think I should go on this path today. Let's go on this one for some reason. She runs this way every single day. And then today they just had some feeling that she should run this way. So she did. She ran into that guy, and it ended up being someone that she knew, an acquaintance, and she had to talk him off the ledge, literally. And this was last Friday. And literally in the middle of the day, I went in to ask her a question, and it was last Friday, and he was on the ledge, and she didn't know what to do. And she's a professor at Gonzaga. She is a nurse practitioner. Has her master's degree. She's about to get her doctorate. She's amazing. She's as qualified gets. And she can admit to me that she had no idea what to do. She talked to him. She got him off the ledge. She ended up figuring out how to get him home. But she said, I don't even know what to do in that situation. And I had just talked to my mom about ASSIST, and I was like, if you're open to it, I have a suggestion. My mom's a therapist, and I told her about this program, and I told her about how just asking them something about the future, something hopeful, can change their lives and change their entire mindset and change. My mom gave me the example of a dad that, you know, maybe is divorced and lost his job and is sitting on the ledge, but he still has a baby at home. And he still has custody, and that, like, bringing up something like that can ground them and bring them to earth and make them want to live one more day, can really help. And I told her that, and she was amazed by it. And she was like, why haven't I not thought of that? She wrote it down. She wrote down the program, and she wants to get trained in it. And she has more certifications than anyone I've ever met. She delivers probably 20 to 30 babies a week. She's just amazing. And she didn't even know what to do. And so, of course, we don't know what to do. How are we supposed to know what to do if you're not a therapist? Like, my mom sees suicidal patients every single day. And that's why we need to use these resources like My Mom, because they can teach us things that we just simply won't learn otherwise. So that was
Right.
another little story.
And
Mhm.
I would also say, I know last week we had somebody who was talking about wanting to recognize their blind spots, like what am I missing kind of thing. And I think with this approach, the difference is you're not necessarily watching for a particular sign. If you notice something is off, that's when you touch base. And that how can I help keep you safe for now is almost the best question you could ask. You could ask that in things that aren't even about suicide. It's just a really effective, and I wish that sports psychologist had said that to Morgan's friend that day. Like, this doesn't sound good. How can I help keep you safe for now? Even if I'm not the one doing it, but
Right.
you know, it would have opened up the conversation rather than dismissing it.
Yeah.
So any other questions you guys have about Assist or about Morgan's experience?
I know that suicide is a touchy topic, and a lot of times people don't know what to even ask. But if you come up with something, you can always text me. Most people here have my number, or you can email us or send us a message through Morgan Ray Softball Pitch or that Facebook page. Just because I know that this can be just private, and a lot of people don't really want to share. So I don't know if you're interested or you have any questions, let us know.
Morgan, I have two small things to say. I know you guys, we've all been pretty quiet tonight, but I wanted to first just say, like, you were amazing for what you did that night. And so many people are forever grateful that you were there for her and that you did save her life. And I would just say too, like, we just never know. And like, I just think you're so aware and in tune with other people, and just for people to like try to be as in tune as you can to the people around, because you got it, you figured it out, and you helped her so much. And we're also grateful that you did that. And I know she is too.
Thank you. That was really nice.
So I'll talk a little bit like I did last time. We want to end every session really talking about the ways that we can reach out for help. And the main reason for that is just because we'll have different people at different times getting on this Zoom meeting and want to make sure that we share it every time. So as Morgan mentioned, if you have a question, a concern, a scenario, that kind of thing that you just don't feel comfortable talking about in this setting, you can send us a message directly on Facebook Messenger to Morgan Ray Softball Pitcher. You also have the option at all times to reach out to people like it can be school counselor, sports psychologist, a doctor, a nurse, you're just anybody in that type of profession looking for help. Certainly a parent, a friend, a coach, especially as we get coaches more and more trained and versed in these conversations, that can be a really good step, especially knowing that just one question can make a big difference, and then we get them into the professional people that they need. And then the Suicide Lifeline. Obviously, this isn't the only approach, but it is the universal way to reach out for help, both as somebody who might be struggling with suicidal thoughts or ideation, but also somebody who isn't sure what to do. So if somebody mentions, hey, I'm kind of concerned about so-and-so, you can call the Suicide Lifeline and say, I'm not sure what to do. And then get trained in Assist, and you will know what to do. So those are the ways that you can get support and help. And then if every one of you does talk to your boss or HR person or whoever coordinates training to get this training for your staff, I think you will all breathe a sigh of relief just knowing that you know more than you know right now.
Gypsy, is it inappropriate to train the team?
Absolutely not. Totally
Would you say,
appropriate.
like, I know you're saying like the staff, but I feel like they're in the
Yeah,
trenches much, if not more than we are.
Absolutely. And I think what it would do if everybody did it, right? I think even including the trainers, is like, it's a common language now. So once you're trained in it, everybody is able to say, how can I keep you safe for now? We're all speaking the same language. So then if someone were to ask you, hey coach, I don't know what to do about this. It's like, well, remember our assist training? Did you go through those steps? You know, that kind of thing, because you're really asking the person to identify their resources to you. You don't have to know anything, right? Who are your people? Who do you trust? Where do you get help? And then that's who you pull into the circle, as Morgan said, and then get them the help they need. So I think it'd be a very good idea.
And I wish that teachers would also get this training.
Yep.
I know Kat's on here, and Kat's a teacher, so maybe your boss would want you guys to get it. But I think that'd be really nice. I know, like up here, I said it last week, in my valley that I live in now, there were like 11 or 12 suicides in the high school in a calendar year. And that is insane. And we live in 50,000 person city. Like, this is not normal. And I haven't seen much about it, but I do know that they have implemented a few programs in the high schools. But imagine if everyone was trained in something like this.
Right. And I think the difference is we all tend to get some surface level training on suicide prevention, and suicide prevention is absolutely necessary, but suicide intervention is really where you're going to make the difference, right? Because the things that our people are struggling with, typical prevention, you know, join a club, isn't necessarily going to be the ultimate answer. It's really the intervention level, and that's what we're talking about today.